In this video, we'll consider project risks as they relate to test management. Any software project has inherent risks associated with it. The risks and uncertainties a project faces represent potential problems that can adversely affect the objectives of the stakeholder, which means they can also have a detrimental impact on the cost and profitability of the project. The level of risk is determined by considering the probability of it occurring and the impact it will have on the project. For these reasons, risk management is necessary. It helps identify, mitigate, and manage risks, and also helps in the process of monitoring the project. Let's consider how project risks can affect testing. Let's look at the testing schedule. It can be negatively impacted due to the introduction of third-party testing software. After all, it has to be installed and configured properly. Developers going over their scheduled time estimates, obviously a direct effect here. Any changes in the scope of testing, predominantly in cases where the scope has to be increased. And inadequate training of testers, which leads to testing activities that take longer than anticipated and not necessarily being done properly. There are 4 ways to deal with project risks that apply to testing. First, you can ignore the risk if the likelihood of its occurrence and impact is low. You can transfer the risk to a third party if a particular risk is high, although this doesn't eliminate the risk, it just transfers it to some other party. You can mitigate risk, and this is done by being proactive and taking steps to minimize the negative impact of a risk. And you can also create a contingency plan to deal with risk. A contingency plan identifies risks before the project begins, and a response plan is created that can be acted on if a risk event occurs. Some of the common organizational factors contributing to risk include the training, skill level, and availability of testers. Inadequately trained testers with low skill levels or lack of committed availability presents a huge risk to the test project's success. Testers failing to communicate and respond to test results create delays in fixing defects, which ultimately affects the entire schedule. If the attitude of testers with regard to the testing process is not one with clear professionalism and objectivity, they will not likely find defects as quickly and efficiently as with a properly prepared tester. Outdated development and testing practices that don't keep pace with the changing landscape of software development can create unnecessary risks. Product risks are potential failures in the software that can make the customer unhappy with the product. This type of risk is known as a quality risk, since this type of risk affects the product quality and the perception of product quality. Identifying product risks can help pinpoint where testing should begin, and it can also determine the areas of the software that should receive additional testing. Risk-based testing, in fact, uses identified product risks to plan testing activities. Common product risks include the possibility that the software as delivered is unreliable and prone to failures, that the functionality requested by the customer is missing from the finished product, the possibility that the failure of the software would result in financial or other damage to an individual or a company, that data isn't handled by the software as it was intended, that software exhibits poor quality characteristics, that is, there are functionality and performance issues, or usability and reliability issues. So in this video, we consider project risks as they relate to test management.